Okay. As usual, I'll ask you to put in the chat if you've got any problems with your body here and now. And if not, I'll presume that you don't. And we'll carry on in that mode. So a moment's pause. It's probably a long enough moment. Let's start the class. We're going to start by sitting down. If you've got 2 blocks like that, well, it means that you're a lucky person, first of all. And secondly, you'll be able to sit on them. If you don't have 2 blocks, don't despair. Because A, you can buy some, they're very cheap. But B, you can use a book, such as this book, which is almost exactly the size of the yoga block. Turn the binding forwards if you're using a book. And we're going to sit on this elevated platform with a blanket under our shins in a cross-legged position known as Sukhasana. Thank you so much for coming. Wonderful, as always, to see you. Palms face up, gap between the legs and pelvis, buttock flesh drawn out and back. Breathing through your nose. And perhaps there's a little bit of movement. Sometimes there's a little bit of movement, isn't it? Quite subtle. Because we want to draw the energy to central areas of the body. We don't want any tension or tightness in the knees, for example. We would rather draw back into the hips, drawing back into the central channel, which roughly corresponds to the spinal column, and allowing movement that helps with that drawing back or drawing into that which is central, that which is stable about our experience. So we'll spend a few more moments on this lovely project. Of course, the whole class is this lovely project of drawing in. Drawing in, that is, to the center. So, for me, I do find that there are little movements, left, right, forwards, backwards. But they're not contrived. You know, it's not based on thinking. It's based on a feeling of coming together or drawing in. Now bring your hands to the heart. Just give them a little rub together. And bring some energy with the rubbing to the heart. So sometimes I even jostle my hands a little bit. Whatever is intuitive, we use that, of course. And the hands come to the heart. And there's a little bit more of this drawing in. Drawing in. So we're drawing into that which is sort of stable rather than that which is unstable. Anitya means unstable. And we're going to chant Om, but we're going to break it down into 3 sound particles. Ah-um. And I hope you do it loud, and I hope you do it with confidence. So it will be for the duration of an exhalation, a long exhalation. And we're going to imagine as best we can feel the sound, starting at the pelvic floor and pushing its way up through this central channel. So ah-um, those are the 3 syllables. Let's take a deep breath in. Inhale. And again, really try to imagine the energy moving up. And the last time. And then deep breaths. So deep breaths are a really lovely experience to allow. And then release your hands and simply change the cross of your legs. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward. Blanket still goes under the shins, the buttock flesh is drawn out and back. Chest is buoyant and lifted. Again, there's a sense of drawing back from whatever peripherals the mind has gone to. So the mind goes to multifarious peripherals, doesn't it? Like the future, like the past, like ideas about ourselves in the present, stories, narrations. We narrate our own story, don't we? Judgments within that story. I was good, I was bad, I did right, I did wrong, I did well, I did poorly, whatever. And that's all fine, it's all whatever. So you have, imagine this sort of strong, like a tree has a strong trunk, central channel. And there's a sense in which we draw into that central channel in any way that works. Like a tree has its sap, you could imagine its sap drawing into the central channel. Tree sap does indeed retreat during the winter months. So drawing in your essence, as it were, to this central channel, this tree trunk. And it retracts, the sap, the energy retracts out of the arms and out of the legs, which are the actions of doing and becoming, into this central channel, which is where we have to arrive in this central channel if we're going to really practice yoga, because yoga is an expression out of this central channel, whether it be a speech, like a mantra, or just words, or whether it be movement, that we often call asana these days, or whether it be qualities of the mind that we might call meditation. Yoga is just an expression in any medium from the central channel. So you have to orientate the sap into that central channel. And once it's orientated back in, then we'll be able to come out again, but from that place, from that center. We can get quite dissipated. If you imagine it like a tree, it has many branches and then branches off branches, and then leaves off branches. There's a lot going on. Various creatures living on the various branches. That's how our lives can get multiplicity. Now again, we're going to use this version of Om, chanted as A-U-M. You'll probably feel as you start the chant in a moment that it's wider at the bottom. The A sound is inherently wider, U is more narrow, M is the narrowest of all. So it's coming to a bindu, a point, somewhere just above the crown of the head. At that point, there's a sense of merging with the wider field. Rub those hands together when you're ready. Feel the sort of authenticity of it. And you can do other things that I'm not listing. Sometimes people like to sort of almost wash their hands or bring it to the shoulders or the face. The point is, it's got to be effective for you here and now to wake you up and to feel present. Once you gather that energy in the heart and it's not stagnant, it's alive, then we're going to chant the Om again, broken down into A-U-M. Think of it as wide, gathering in like the banks of a river, getting closer and closer, and the stream being more intense. Take a deep breath in, inhale. Two more. And the last round. Deep breath. And let the breath come and go. So one of the things we're doing in yoga, particularly tantric yoga, is bringing several things together. I mean, that's typical for all yoga. The tantric yoga is really self-aware of that project. So here we're in that last practice, bringing visualization together with sound, together with breath, together with concentration. Okay, release your hands and remove the blanket and put it to one side. And then we're going to lay down on our backs, but before you do, make sure that you've got a belt of some kind. It can be a Of course, a dressing gown belt works very well, or whatever you've got nearby. And lay down on your back again. Head tips back at all. Make sure you provide yourself with some support. And you can even extend through the back of the neck with your fingers. And take breaths there. Once ready, once positioned, you can give yourself a moment with the belt open and the hands on the upper chest. And I recommend when you bring your hands onto your upper chest that you move your elbows, you lift them and extend them to move your shoulder blades. And then finally, landing. Neck soft, eyes soft, brain soft, throat soft, lower back soft. And breathing through the nose. From there, we raise up the feet. And remove the hands from the chest so you can take the strap. We're going to see if we can't catch a pair of feet. Okay, so raising your belt up, raising your feet up, catching your feet with the belt. And this can be kind of fun and entertaining because you can play with it. Sometimes I like to let the legs drift apart and then pulling on the belt, bring them back together. Obviously you don't want to go too wide because it can be hard on the inner thigh muscle, the adductors, to bring them back together, but just a little play. Other movements might come naturally, like moving your foot in other planes, pointing the toe, pushing the heel, for example. Eventually you're going to end up with your feet close. They might even touch. Doesn't matter if they don't. And the legs raised up and maybe little movements. You might massage your back into the floor a little bit. The legs might drift left or right. You might even shake your legs against the belt. The point is aliveness again, aliveness. I quite like a shake or a drifting or both, but always the point is aliveness. Just so very simple, very, very simple. Jaw soft, eyes soft, brain soft. Now we're going to release one foot from the strap and keep the other one up in it and keep the knee bent of the one you've released. And then extend the leg out to about 45 degrees relative to the floor. Now you need your lower back quite close to the floor. I quite like to lift my head up, actually, for this, because it helps the lower back stay into it. Then bring the leg back, head down if you lifted it, go back into the strap, and again, a little playful movement. So you can wag your tail or move your feet or shake the legs. Whatever feels like it's kind of powerful, kind of bringing you out, as it were. Bring your other foot out of the belt and bend at the knee. Catch your breath. Take a few deep breaths. Just catch a few deep breaths. Then extend your leg out to about 45 degrees. And lift up your head if you want. For me, that does help to keep the lower back more intimate with the floor, which helps to avoid any strain there. And retract your leg back, bring your head down, back into the strap again, and take a breath or two. Now we're going to have another moment of play, so whatever you find useful, shaking, shimmying the pelvis. And then we're going to remove the first foot again from the strap, but this time holding the strap with two hands. We're going to skim the heel along the floor like we would skim a stone. So it's going to touch the floor, lift and travel, touch it again, lift and travel, just like a stone skimming along the surface of water, if you were to throw a stone. And then go for, at the last moment, more extension. More and more extension of the inner groin, that is to say the top of the inner thigh. So keep repeating that. Movements, any movements of the foot that help you really access, can be quite subtle, the inner groin. So I'm repeating again and again and again movements of my foot, of the lower leg. Okay, bend up and replace the foot back in. So there's a few little sequences here in Supta Pada Angushtasana. Release the other leg. Reiterate your hold on the strap. Keep the neck soft, breathe through the nose. And when ready, skim the heel. So it touches, lifts and travels, touches, lifts and travels, touches, lifts and travels, touches. And then go for when the leg feels sort of straight-ish. Know that lots of little subtle movements can gain you access to the space
of the inner groin, the top of the inner thigh. That's what we want, to gain access to the space of the inner groin. Breathing's deep, neck's relaxed, jaw is soft. And you just come back to it, Abhyasa, again and again. Abhyasa means again and again and again. But also, Patanjali says in the Yoga Sutra, spaciously, Abhyasa, Vairagyabhyam. Abhyam means both repetition and ease, sense of ease, fullness. Okay, well done. Bend that leg, pop it back into the strap again. Again, a little bit of play. You can take the feet wider, you can move the arms, play with it in ways that feel helpful. If your arms are tired, try different arm position. And then catch a breath or two, release the strap but keep your feet where they are. Stretch your arms up towards your toes. Great. And then lift each arm to lift each shoulder blade. And you might even sway your arms like you're holding a scarf as you start bringing your arms over your head towards the floor. Now the thing is to really get some limber feelings happening in the shoulder blades. So this side to side, perhaps pausing, you're still balancing that strap. It's quite a challenge actually. But it's a meditative challenge. If you really stretch your one arm over to the opposite side, it will pull the shoulder blade out, away from the spine at the bottom inner edge and up. And it's just that starts making your shoulder joint function with increased ease every time you repeat. So you end up where you end up, and take a breath or two. It's quite tough. Don't be content with just bearing it. You can repeat adjustments to loosen off again. Breathe through the nose, relax the neck. Relax the lower back. So this is very simple. It's called Urdhva Prasrita Padasana. Really simple, very powerful. Bring your arms forwards and up towards the strap. Well done. Bend one leg down to the floor. Take off the belt as that other leg comes down. Put the belt to one side and pop your hands under your head and take a couple of deep breaths. You might quite naturally want to tuck your buttocks under. That's quite instinctive, intuitive. Feel free to do just that. The jaw is soft, the eyes are soft, the brain is soft. Everything that can be soft is soft. Okay. So breath. This is where it's really at now, it's breath, isn't it? Now from this position, flex up your hips, lift up your feet. And the lower back again becomes a little bit more intimate with the floor. A little bit more intimate. That's a meditation because intimacy is basically just one moment away from infinity. Because the sensations that feel infinite feel so because they are intimate, and they feel intimate because they're infinite. Now lift up your head and the lower back is close to the floor, and again, that intimacy. So it's powerful, it's intimate, it's honest. Breath centered. Now extend one leg to about 45 degrees and then retract it. Do the same with the other, similarly. And then retract it. And one more time each side. 45, retract, 45, retract. And then the head comes down, the feet come down. We all take a deep breath. In fact, take a few. So they really just come and go, they just come and go. And that's what we're focused on for a few breaths at least, the breath coming and going. There's a sense in which we're just allowing that. And we're going back into the abdomen, going back into the body spine. So flex up your hips again, open the angle at the back of the knees again, lift up your head, just as before, and opposite elbow, opposite knee will go towards each other. Now it could feel quite easily like we're doing exercise, but it's a meditation because of the richness of the sensations. And they're sort of bubbling and swirling and churning. That's what richness implies. Over to the other side, similarly, aware of the richness, the powerful churning and bubbling and swirling of sensations. Back to center, head down, feet down, deep breaths. Not just one, not just two, but several. Jaw soft, eyes soft. Release your hands from underneath your head and stretch your arms towards your feet. Bring your feet quite close up to your bum. Okay? And then hold your yoga mat firmly so that you bring your shoulders decidedly down, away from your ears, the shoulders decidedly down. You'll probably naturally want to turn your arms out a little bit, even at this point. That's a good thing to do. Lightly tone the tummy in and up, and on an exhale, we're going to lift the pelvis. And when it lifts, it can drift, it can bounce, it can sway, it can tilt in various different ways. The purpose is to loosen enough to start merging with this moment. As you breathe into, as you move left and right and up. And some of us want to lift to a point where actually turning the arms out even more will feel better still, because the spine will lift off the floor and the chest will open up. So that's an option. Bouncing, tilting, swaying, finding length. Okay, internally rotating, bringing the bum back down, walking the feet away from the head, putting the hands back underneath the head, and deep breaths. Notice if there's something holding you back from releasing the elbows down, and you'll feel it in your breath. What is that holding? What are we holding on to? Yoga says that you don't need to hold on to anything. It reminds us. It says, let go. Every time it just says, let go. Just let go, let go. Again and again, it says the same thing. Now flex up the hips again, as we did before. Lift up the feet, that's all that means, lift up the feet. Lift up the head, and again, we have a little navel gazing going on. But I hope you can feel it going beyond your visual faculty into your felt faculty as you close or half close your eyes even. Focus on the living moments and their ever-changing, swirling, absorbing reality. Head comes back down, feet come back down. Draw a couple of deep breaths. So really important to just let that happen actually. Now as you're letting that happen, release your hands from behind your head and simply roll over. So if you've got the screen set up to the side of you, like I have, you could roll towards it, that's optional. And you're going to bend the leg that you're laying on, this Shayana Manichasana that you're familiar with, I'm sure, from past classes. 90 degrees between the calf and thigh, 90 degrees between your thigh and tummy. And then we're going to look for space in the top of the inner thigh. So that takes a little bit of concentration. The leg might go higher or further back. because we want to first of all feel, tangize that space. And that takes time to tune into something beyond attachments, like attachments to the past and the future. Most of us are conditioned to grasp, to grip, to grab. Yoga keeps saying, let go, and it gives us ways in which we can let go, like focusing on space. Keep your focus on space as you bring your foot back down, but you can go back up if you lose the space and want to reiterate it. Suck in the tummy, push the hands down, lift up and turn. Elbows, forearms and wrists will come to the floor. And the breathing is through the nose. If you find it useful, you can massage your tummy or lower back or both through movements backwards and forwards as well as turns, further turning. So mix it up, stir it up as it were, and turn. So you're sort of stirring up the tendencies to grip, keeping it all loose and fluid. Top leg on top of the bottom leg, curl up from the side, pushing with your hands. And down, you're coming to your other side, similarly. So it's a lovely pose, Shayana Marichasana. Turning the leg, laying on 90 degrees between the calf and the thigh, between the thigh and the tummy. Look for that space in the inner groin. So lift up the leg and really search for it, really challenge yourself to tune out of whatever it is that you're otherwise tuned in on and tune into this. So the leg's lifted, it's moving back, it's moving forward. And it's very intimate and it's very powerful, it's very honest. Eventually, of course, the leg will come down with that space maintained. And that's a really lovely, subtle art. Once the legs come back down, suck in that tummy, push down, lift and turn as before, and down to your forearms. Breathing through the nose. Jaw passive. And you'll feel your own intuition about where and when to move, to conduce, to flow. Perhaps side to side, perhaps forwards, backwards. But the breath also, that really should come and go. Jaw soft, eyes soft. And keep repeating, keep drawing yourself back in to the intimacy. Great. Okay, top leg on top of the bottom leg. Curling up as calm and easy as you can. And onto hands and knees. So as soon as you're ready, you can pop yourself onto your hands and knees. You might wag your tail a little bit. Quite nice to do that sometimes. Just to get a bit of flow, and a bit of movement going on. And to start giving to that flow, because most of us do get snagged and caught up in this and that, even in one day. You can miss yoga for a day, and before you know it, you're caught on this and that bit. Yoga is a really powerful opportunity to allow us to let go. Now, when you're ready, we're going to bring one knee to the back of one wrist. It's up to you which one you do. It doesn't matter, because we're going to do both. Move the foot of that leg diagonally across the body. You might need to lift up the other knee and take it back to get it out of the way. And then stretching back. And as I've said before, if you've got any pain in the front bent knee, lean towards it. Okay? But otherwise, you can be as you are. Now, some people find immediately it's much better to come down lower, down to their elbows. Great, feels great. Other people find immediately they find they want to be up higher. You can be either, you can even move between the two. But feeling better is about what is triggering the release of the breath. So keep tone in your tummy if you are lifted up. Imagine a release that's connected to your breath from your inner groin. If you're up or down, if you're lower down on the elbows or higher up on the hands. Keep breathing through the nose with the eyes soft. Staying relaxed. Maximize the height.
maximize that. Great, okay. Coming out, so either coming up if you were down or down if you were up, tucking the back toes under, back to hands and knees. You can see Ralph has joined us here now, as he often likes to. And then other knee to the back of the other wrist, foot moves diagonally across the body, and similarly, you stretch back your other leg. And of course, what applied before applies now. If you've got pain in your knee, lean towards it. But you can also help to avoid pain in the knee by massaging into the hip. If you know that instantaneously you're going to be more comfortable down on your elbows, then feel free. If you prefer, you can be higher up. Whatever feels that it's most conducive to the invitation to release and then the ability to release. So that means deep breaths. Look for the pose to be stimulating. And let that stimulation be an invitation to say yes to this moment fully, which is a way in which you can cleanse your nerves. Your nervous system gets cleansed, and cleaned, and fresh, refreshened. Refreshened? It's not a word, is it? Freshened up. Or refreshened. I've made a new word today. I hope you'll use it in your day-to-day life. So, up to you how you move, but move in ways that do flush through the system. Jaw soft, eyes soft. Really quite magical, I think. That's just the unwieldy named pose. Ekapada Raja Kapotasana. And if you've got your head down, it's Adho Mukha Ekapada Raja Kapotasana. We're going to either come forwards if you come down if you're up, or up if you're down. Tuck those back toes under and come back to hands and knees. Well, I'll have to be careful not to bash the cat who's come into a position of chief occupancy on the mat, and then just shaking out and breathing out nice and easy. Now from here we're going to come into a version of Gomukhasana, for which many of us do find advantageous. It's advantageous to sit on block. So block or not, or two blocks, legs over to one side, top leg up and over the bottom leg, 1 foot back, 1 foot forwards. And I find, perhaps you will too, a little lift and a shift. Very helpful indeed. Particularly when you know you're like an artist when they put their first brushstroke on the canvas, step back, look, and then they get the instinct where to put the next one, and then it becomes a flow. You're adjusting your body like that. Make an initial adjustment, and it will tell you how to make the next. Make the next, and it will tell you how to make the one after. Gradually, the body starts to come into a better alignment for the skeletal system, for the bones. When you're ready, you rest your hands on the floor, on your knee, in a prayer, as you like. You could even clasp the hands behind you. You've probably got your belt nearby, so that's another option. If you are clasping, whichever leg is on top, the opposite arm will be the top. So whichever leg is on top, the opposite arm is the top. If you're clasping, then you're a good chance that you'll need to use a strap or a belt to bridge the gap. But other hand positions are fine as well. What's nice about this pose, if you do clasp, is that sense in which everything is being revolved around towards the center, being directed. Because much as we are all happy to get behind the idea of being centered, we all want that. We all sometimes feel drawn away from our center, we feel confused by the pulls and habits of our minds. So we want to come to the center. But this pose physically directs the energy like that. From one side, from the arms, you're turning towards the center. From the other side, you're turning the other way. Everything revolves around towards the middle. So that's very helpful. Breath, of course, is our primary way of telling if this giving's really happening, because as we breathe more freely, worries about the future, anxieties about the past, or nostalgia about the past, and excited anticipation about the future. You know, these all kind of ease off. They all kind of ease off. Now, ease the arms out of the pose in your own time. If you took the arms into the pose, great, stay longer, but will come out. And ease the legs out as well. Got to be quite easy about the way you move the body. You're welcome, by the way, to stretch the legs and give them a rub between sides. Many people find that useful. I certainly do. And when ready for what I shall call side 2, because it's the second side, legs over to the other side. Remember, you can sit on a block. Top leg up and over the bottom leg. One foot is back by the hip, one foot is forwards, more or less in the same plane as the knee. And then these lifting, shifting actions. Jaw is soft, eyes are soft. And you can lift and shift any amount of times, and it does help. Remember, we're thinking about the tensegrity, the way the bones are held together through so many strands of elasticated tissue that melt on movement. So this is, you can actually help them to be optimally positioned for peace in every pose. So we're optimally positioned for a couple of poses that we habituate to, but that which we habituate to physically, we also habituate to mentally. So this is why habituating to more and more shapes, as it were, more and more poses, by adjusting and melting and realigning and warming tissue and breathing into shapes, takes the mind into wider territory as well. And in this way, you can come outside of the sort of tendency to follow patterns, and the pathway becomes wide again. So breathe through your nose, subtle movement if it's helping to massage, release in. Jaw soft, eyes soft, brain soft. Jaw soft, eyes soft, brain soft. And you got that breath. Again, we have that our breath. And we're investigating. Resistance is actually a positive thing. Tightness, resistance, difficulty. Those are not areas that you're struggling with. Those are your doorways into this infinite field that negates grasping. Okay, again, don't forget you can use the arms as well in the various positions that we listed before. If you clasp on one side, it's worth clasping on the other. And remember, it's opposites if you are clasping. And perhaps you can even feel that sort of curling in, spiraling in from both sides. That sort of encouragement from the body shape to center. It's like a sort of, like channels have been opened, and energy can be moved through those channels into the center, the energy of our ordinary habits, our habitual volitions. Okay, well done. Much as it's a good pose to stay, we'll come out slowly. Always good to come out of those kind of poses fairly slowly. And we're going to bring ourselves, probably best, if you've got some support, to use a back support in the form of a wall with a block behind you, or a radiator, or a person, if you've got someone else there. Best to be on the support, have your back supported if possible. If not possible, you can see it is possible to do it without a back support. So it's Baddha Konasana. Remember, if you're using a wall to support yourself, if you've got one of these blocks, put that on the floor between you and the wall, and it should touch the floor, the block, so it supports you from the floor upwards. So Baddha Konasana, I've always found it a sort of pose that the mind tends to underestimate, but has a very profound effect. Probably because the way it stretches both the adductors and the psoas. And remember, when you're changing a physical paradigm, you're changing the mental paradigm and the habitual mental paradigm that accompanies that physical pattern. So stretching across from the inner groins, across the pubic bone and through the deep belly. Breathing into it, melting what can be melted. The more you're saying yes to this, the more the nervous system's being cleansed, the more we're letting go. And there's nothing you can do about the past. You know, if you regret it or have remorse or want it back or would like to do something differently, it's gone, right? And the future hasn't come yet. So you can't have any effect on that either. All you've got is this. So by surrendering, you're surrendering to this. That's like a surfer surrenders to the undulations of a wave and surfs. So the yogin becomes a surfer, and of course, the better you surf now, the future is just now, isn't it? Now is a continuum. So it means that the future's so-called future is going to be better too. Because the future is just a continuum of now. I hope your breath is helping you. I hope movement is something you can use as well. Melting mind and body together. Let's have some of that breath released. Let's have some giving. And notice any resistance and remind yourself this is right. Giving is right. Holding is not cleansed. You know, holding is congestion. So keep coming back to the body, study the body. With fascination, with love even, and give to it. Give to this sensation, give to that sensation. If there's any resistance, ask what that is. What is that? You'll find it is attachment to the past or attachment to the future. Let them go. They don't exist. Better to bring your energies to awakeness now. Release your legs slow and easy. And coming out of the pose, I'm going to attempt to do Upavishta Konasana with a cat on my mat. And it's quite tricky because it's right in the flipping way. But anyway, I'll let it go. So we're going to take the legs to a relatively wide stride. I'm afraid he gave me a look then, the cat gave me a little look. And sitting on a block is useful for most people. No, I'm not sitting on a block because there's no need for me to sit on a block for a couple of reasons. One is my adductors and hamstring muscles are relatively loose. And I can bring the pelvis to an upright seated position, you know, and that's great. But if you can't, which most people will use this wisely, sit on a block with the corner facing forwards, just projecting forwards of the pubis. So the block is on the ski width, as it were. The legs should be equidistant from an imagined midline. So you have a look at that. And the toes face up. The point of having the block on the ski width is that your thighs should be free. Now take your hands cupped when you're ready. and just put them towards me like claws, like bear claws, beautifully done. Oh, that's lovely. What cute bears you are, not at all frightening, you're just kind of cute. And then turn your cute paws the other way and fingers facing behind you. Roll your shoulder blades down your back and chest up. That's a lovely feeling of stretch across the chest, and sometimes it's intuitive to move into that little. You might move left or right with the pelvis to kind of massage opportunities for space and flow. It's good to keep the tummy a little lightly toned, slightly drawn in and up. And of course the breath comes and goes. The eyes and the brain are soft. Now I quite like to turn around to face one leg. It doesn't matter which one because we're going to do both. So go ahead and turn to face the leg, but feel your energy release to the other leg. You turn to one but release through the other. And breathing easy. Most of us are going to get plenty just where we are. Occasionally it feels instinctive for some to lean forwards. You can, but it has to be said that leaning forwards when you're sitting on a block doesn't feel great if you lean too far forwards. So you're welcome to lean forwards or not. And then coming back to center and turning towards the other leg. Similarly, imagining energy releasing through your back leg. It's a lovely feeling actually. It's a feeling of giving, of melting, of trusting, of starting again. So we have this imagery, don't we, in various religious movements, because we need that. Baptism, cleansed by water. Even the ancient Harappan civilization, the 5,000-year-old civilization of the Indus Valley in India and Pakistan, even goes all the way up to Russia, the borders of Russia. Even there, they had, it seems, areas to submerge themselves ritually. Again, there's the option to extend a little further forwards if that feels like something you want to do, but you're not obliged to. What we're obliged to do when we're practicing yoga is practice yoga, sense of giving. Coming back up if you went down, or turning back to the center while we're down. And then hope you're able to bring your legs back together. Oof. Well done. Now, if you're on a block, come off a block because we're going to come into Ubhaya Padangusthasana, which means holding. Ubhaya means both. We heard the word Ubhaya earlier when we heard about Patanjali, both repetition and easefulness come together. Hold your big toes, lean back until your feet come off the floor, and then experiment. You can raise one leg or the other, or keep them both bent. The point isn't achieving some sort of look. And the great thing about real life classes, of course, as well, but also on Zoom, is we're much less likely to get, even beginning to get bothered or motivated by how we look. It's about how it feels, isn't it? That's the whole point of yoga. So sometimes you might end up with both legs bent, or one leg straight and one leg bent. It's just the way that these sensations absorb you that matters. So play in any way that works. I quite like to sort of drift a little side to side. Sometimes I like to bring the legs together apart. There's a lot of different variants that you can play with. The breath is everything. Jaw is soft, temples are relaxed. So this is Ubhaya Padangusthasana. I think it's quite a lot of fun to meditate. It's a form of meditation.
Okay. Slow and easy. Coming down from there. We're actually going to come to a squatting position. Now, it has to be said that not everyone will be able to squat for one of two reasons. Reason number one is the calcaneus tendons from the calves to the heels have tension in them. This tension is something that's great to challenge and to release. And the number two is that the bones in the feet, the talus in particular, is high up. And so as you bring your shin bone forwards, it meets it and can't come forwards. In either case, feel free, please, to support your heels with blocks under the heels or a neatly folded blanket. Better to have support under the heels than it is to have them lifted off the floor. Once you're in your squat, then you move in ways that feel right to you. So drifting forwards or backwards. Arm position can be, as I've got mine here, on the inside of the legs, with the hands in prayer. Alternatively, the knees can go to the armpits. Not the elbows have nothing to do with it. The knees can go to the armpits. So those two different positions. And of course, breathing into it, releasing your tailbone. Squatting is one of the most useful challenges. Remember, what we're doing is challenging the body in as many different positions as we can, so that the body is carrying as few patterns and habits as possible. Every pose you enter challenges and identifies and finds habits and patterns. You cleanse those through movement and breath. Great, okay. After a while it kind of get tough on the front shins, so we come out of that and we're going to come into Adho Mukha Svanasana. That's down face dog. Once you're up in your down face dog, obviously you might need to move your blocks and so on. Really pad your paws into a good solid weave into the mat. And open up your armpits. Open up the armpits. What does it mean to open up the armpits? Well, it means feel them. How do you feel them? Tune in. How do you tune in? Movement might help. If that movement is purposed to that aim, to tuning in. Many of us like to bend and extend the knees. Others also like to include moving the pelvis side to side. Extending through the inner armpits, to the inner groins, outer arms, all the way through to the hips, and so on. Heels go back, inner groins go up. Gluteal creases, where your bum and thigh meet, go forward, deeper. Well done, everyone. That will do. For now, we come down to Vajrasana, regular kneeling. As you know, perhaps you know this, I'm sure you do. Put a block between the heels and buttocks if your knees are tight. So Vajrasana, regular kneeling. One hand on top of the other. Breathing through the nose. Perhaps you massage a little into the calves and the shin muscles and buttocks by moving side to side. Jaw soft, eyes soft, brain soft. Okay, now we're going to release our hands and we're going to extend the legs out for an interesting pose. Using that word in an interesting way. Interesting pose. Parapurnanavasana. That's full boat pose. Now, this can be done with belts very effectively and very enjoyably if you happen to have a very long belt, but we won't do it that way today, sadly, because that is incredibly enjoyable. We're going to do it in two ways. Number one, we're going to bend the legs. We're going to bring our arms forward. You can do this with me. So legs bent, arms forward. I'm just adjusting the sitting bones and taking a breath or two. Great. So it's a bit like being in a little car or something. Right? Beep the horn, the little car, as you drive it down the little road. And then we're going to lean back as if the little car were going up a slope and take a breath or two like that. So this is bent knee. And some people even like to experiment with extending the legs a little bit, not necessarily to straight, not necessarily both together, but just playing with a little extension and flexion again with the knees. That can be interesting. Make sure your back doesn't tense up. Bring your feet back down to the floor, hug your legs, lift up your lower back. And then look for lightness in the lumbar, perhaps through movement, side to side. Breathing through the nose. Great. Taking some breaths. Okay, now here's the other way. I just should couch this by saying, I'm very fond of you. Sorry. Apologies in advance. We're going to lean the body back by 30 degrees. And as we go back, we're going to raise the legs up by 60 degrees. It's quite hard. You might need to keep the knees bent. You might lose balance. It is called boat pose. As I said already, I do like you. It's not, don't take it personally. But you can keep the knees bent. If it's really just too tough with the legs straight, don't worry about it. You know, we're not trying to prove how tough we are. We're practicing meditation, right? Okay, I'm bending the knees, hug the legs, and sit up and go light in the lower back. Sometimes you can get a little tight in the lower back after that, so a little massage and movement side to side can often be very, very helpful. So take some deep breaths, keep some height, eyes soft, brain soft, throat soft. Coming out of that and onto your forearms on the floor. So your forearms are going to be on the floor like this, as if you're holding bunches of flowers, offering them again and again. They're hundreds of thousands to the present moment. Bunches of flowers. Stretch your legs back, and the body is poised in this beautiful meditation of movement, where we're sloping from shoulder blades to buttocks and buttocks to heels. We're sharing the load through our movements, left, right, forwards, backwards, so that nothing builds up too much. Breathing, of course, should be deep, honest, natural. Jaw should be soft, eyes should be soft, brain relaxed. It's all about this sharing modality. Sharing modality. Well done, knees down, and then take a breath, still on your forearms, bring your knees forwards a little, and take another breath. You might just shake out your tail to loosen up the lower back. And any way that's meditative, you know, slow or fast, or even not at all. Now we're going to just try a little something for a moment or two, and that is toes tucked under, hands as they are, like you're holding bunches of flowers, elbows shoulder width. We're going to lift up our bums and see if we can't just keep our heads off the floor, right? Even just for a moment. You know, look for a bit of height, look for a bit of space. Don't make it harder than it needs to by adding a hard attitude. Have a soft attitude, an attitude that's relaxed and surfer-like, and come down very, very, very slowly, easily, and back to a kneeling position, because that's quite something, isn't it? Well done. Well done. Back to a kneeling position. Catching deep breaths, multiple deep breaths. Perhaps there's movements on the shins. Jaw soft, throat soft. Let go of any tension in the neck that doesn't need to be there. Jaw soft, throat soft. Good. Coming forwards to lay on your tummy. Which sounds like good news, doesn't it? Coming forwards to lay on your tummy. But just prop yourself up on your elbows, like a kid watching telly. And stretch your tummy as well. So a little bit of traction on the mat. And we stretch the tummy from pubis to chest. And you could, might find it useful to move your pelvis to kind of jostle those lower back bones as you're stretching them into a little bit more looseness, the lower back bones. A little bit more looseness.
And don't forget that's in combination with the traction against the mat to stretch as well as loosen. And breathing. You can also stretch your legs back and bring them closer to each other. They might even come together. From there, we're going to place our hands then on the floor next to the ribs. And this is more than enough for most of us. There's plenty going on for everyone here. The basics to this part of the pose are don't squeeze the buttocks towards each other. Point your elbows back. Lightly turn your tummy. Now for one or two people, maybe with the hands a little further forwards if necessary, you want to lift further. Now, super good for your back to do this. Not always easy, doesn't always feel nice, but it's really important to do and really good for your back. And I have to say, the longer you stay, to a certain extent, the better. So it's definitely a slow burn. You have to keep sucking in the tummy, lifting up the chest, stretching the back of the arms down to the heels of the hand. Those Bhujangasana. Bhujangasana. Just a beautiful, super beneficial pose. A few more breaths is worth staying, even if you're finding it difficult. Suck in that tummy, push down the back of the arms towards the heels of the hands. Well done, everyone. Good job. Down you come. Rest one hand on top of the other. Rest your head. And draw a few properly deep breaths now. So that's a pose to practice, I would say, nearly every day. 5 days of the week for sure. Nearly every day. Take a few breaths just as you are. Now we're coming back to our elbows and forearms and wrists, and we're coming back to that stretch of the tummy and that jostling of the pelvis. We're not coming into the same pose, but some of the preparations are the same. So moving side to side, stretch the tummy. And then stretch the legs. This time we're not going to bring them together, but we are going to stretch them back. And when we lift each leg, and you might do it several times like I do, you're going to do a couple of things. You're going to turn your thighs to face down towards the floor, and you're going to extend some space into the inner groins and the front groins. So that's really good, it's really important. From there, we're going to see if we can, one at a time or both together, take hold of a shin or an ankle or a foot. Good job, great. And it can feel a bit like you're resting yourself, so appreciate the sort of surreal nature of it. Don't forget, you can do it one and then release that one and do the other, or you can do them both together. Just getting hold of the legs is good practice. You might want to, after a while, lift up the legs and even lift up the chest. And imagine the shoulder blades going deeper and then into the back body as the chest rises up. The breath should be as it needs to be, expressive and honest. Just of course the beautiful and powerful and transformative Dhanurasana. Well done, everyone. Come down slow. Well done, well done. Rest your head on your hands, even if that feels uncomfortable afterwards. That's no problem. Obviously, you're working muscles that most of us don't work that much under ordinary circumstances, but under lockdown, maybe even less so. So just notice the muscles, they naturally relax themselves, breathe into it, then take a few more deep breaths, letting everything settle itself. Letting everything settle itself. It can feel a bit like you've been sort of knocked out. Roll over, however, onto your side and come up from the side, fairly sort of as easily as you can. Now, I'll just go through a very brief demonstration of what we're going to do next. You can do this with your, probably best off doing it with your knees apart, with your hands distance apart, so your hand will go between your knees, your feet straight back from your knees. If we don't do it yet, I want to make a couple of points before we come into it. Now, I do it with my legs and feet together. That's also fine, but it's a bit harder. I prefer it, but you should probably do it. Most of us should do it with your legs apart.
your hands should go like this. I'll give you a close-up so you can see I'm reversing. Beep, beep, beep. Hands are like that. Not like this, but like this, okay? So that your hands go along the little ridge at the back of the pelvis. And then all you're going to do is suck in the tummy, push down the hands, and see if you can elevate your lower back as much as possible using your chest. It's, for some people, if you keep elevating, it ends up with you feeling like you might as well bring your hands to your feet. Well, that's fine, you can do that if you wish, but most of us certainly don't need to do that. So anyway, enough demonstration for me. Let's do it together. Hands on the posterior superior iliac spine. That's that bony ridge at the back of the pelvis. Thumbs face in, fingers face out. Remember, your legs probably are better off hand width apart. Your feet should be exactly the same distance. Please don't have your toes closer than your knees. The feet should be the same distance. Can do it with your legs together if you know you've got quite a lot of movement. Press down. Your only mission here is to lift up one vertebrae from the other as much as you can. So suck in the tummy, open the chest, and stretch. And keep doing that, sucking in the tummy, opening the chest, stretching it. The heels of the hands really pressing down through the back of the pelvis as you lift up. It may be through this process you begin to arch. Your intention is simply to lift, but as a side effect of that, you might start to arch. And it's possible that your arch builds up so much that you feel might as well bring the hands to the feet, which of course you can if you wish, but it's not incumbent on you to do that. Head and chest accompany each other over. Okay, coming up from wherever you came down, sitting, you can put a block between the heels and buttocks. Rest one hand on top of the other, take some deep breaths, okay? These poses are very challenging. They really wake up some muscle groups that you might not have felt for a while. So, you know, a bit of hair of the dog is what I recommend tomorrow. Come if you can to the 7:30 a.m. class and a bit of hair of the dog. Release your hands. We're going to sit on a block for a little twist. You can sit on two, but if you're on two, you'll need another block behind you for your hands to come onto. This is Bharadvajasana, buttock, let's draw out and back. A little rub down, a little energy bath as we call it, around the pelvis, around the legs. Wherever you can get to, give yourself a proper energy bath. If you are having a proper bath, you make sure you clean every part of the body. Make sure you energy bath your face, your armpits. Don't be shy, or be shy, but do it anyway. Because it's important to feel that go through both your arms. So you've really got some energy moving around. Once you've given yourself a good old energy bath, the legs go to one side of the pelvis. The upper leg, lower shin, goes into the arch of the lower leg foot. So you end up with one foot pointing back and one foot pointing across. The knees are a little way apart and both knees are down. Back leg is the one nearest your feet. Inhale, lift and turn away from your feet and imagine the back leg as a lovely sort of contentedness, santosha, contentedness to it. So it really rests. You breathe into that. Natural, honest, expressive breaths. Okay. It's a beautiful, simple pose. Release, return to center. Stretch out your legs when ready. Little energy bath again. That can not just take the form of rubbing, but also you can take your hands into a sort of loose fist and just pat the body that way. That's very, very effective indeed. I think it's called doing, but I'm remembering that from about 29 years ago when someone showed me how to do it. So I might be remembering that incorrectly. Anyway, one leg on top of the other, knees a little way apart, groin or back leg heavy. Remember the back leg's the one near the feet. Feel that heaviness as you lift and turn away
from your feet, breathing through the nose, soft eyes, letting yourself become cleansed, as it were, of the future and the past, feeling the invitation and the challenge. So it's an invitation that says, would you like to let go? And when you hear that invitation, the only part that we have to develop is our response that says, yes. Would you like to let go? Yes. And all you got to do is say yes to this and you let go. Pure, so every new moment's like being cleansed, like being sort of baptized in the sense. Fresh, new, breath-centered, alive, spontaneous, without a past, without a future. Well done, return to center. We're going to sit for a moment in Siddhasana, which I think some of you know that I recommend a brick block if you have one for Siddhasana. But if the position we started off in, Sukhasana, is more comfortable using the blanket, then please feel free to do that on a couple of blocks as we did right at the beginning of the class. If Siddhasana is fine, remember Siddhasana's heels lined up with each other in the midline of the body, then that's fine as well. But if you need to sit in a different position, a chair is fine too. If you're sitting on a chair, sit right towards the front. We need the spine to be light. Either way, eyes can close or half close once you're positioned well, get your flesh adjusted and so on. So deep, honest breaths. Concentrating, so training together, several factors: visualization, concentration, breath, attitude, stringing them together. We're going to chant 3 bija mantras. Bija means seed. Mantra means mind protector. 3 of these bija mantras: Om, Ah, Hum. Om, so we can spell it O-M. Ah, we can spell it A-H. Hum, we can spell it H-U-N-G, if you like, or H-U-M, with a dot underneath the M. Hum. And then the only other thing we've got to attach to this is color. So Om is going to be white light, brilliant white light. That's going to be positioned in the head. Ah, it's going to be a red light. That's going to be in the throat, brilliant red light. Hum is going to be blue light. Beautiful, rich blue light. Om, Ah, Hum. Each one of these mantras will last the length of a whole exhalation. So it will be 3 breaths in total. Bring your hands to your forehead. This is where the Om is going to be, the white light Om. Remember, it will be red Ah, and then blue Hum after that. Take a deep breath in. Inhale. Next, hands down to the throat. Red Ah. And then lastly to the heart, the blue Hum. Fills the whole chest. Deep breaths at the end. Feel that you planted those, the white Om, the red Ah, the blue Hum. Feel them vibrating where you place them, shining where you place, radiating. A powerful light shines in all directions. North, south, east, west, up and down. Releasing the hands if you're ready. We're going to come into Shavasana. So if your back is a little tight, put a bolster under your knees if you've got one, or you can always roll a couple of blankets together and put that underneath your knees. If your back feels a little tight, that's worth doing. If you haven't got anything you can make into a bolster, you can always just keep the legs bent for a while. Spacious and symmetrical are the two sort of key words that I often use for this pose. Palms facing up. One who has gained complete discrimination between the subtlest level of mind and the self has no higher knowledge to acquire. This is Dharma Mega Samadhi, the state of unclouded truth. Then the afflictions and karmas cease. Knowledge which has been freed from the veils of impurity is unbounded. Whatever can be known is insignificant in its light. This samadhi, this meditation, completes the transformation of the elements of existence and fulfills the purpose of evolution. Now the process by which evolution unfolds through time is understood. The gunas, the elements of existence, their purpose fulfilled, return to their original state of harmony, and pure, unbounded consciousness remains, forever established in its own nature. This is enlightenment. Feel into your body as if it were something new. Allow your toes to move, maybe the fingers. Bending your legs when you're ready, placing the soles of the feet onto the floor or bolster and tuck under the buttocks. Let the lower back totally release. When ready, roll onto your left side. And lay as comfortably as you can there. Nice to draw the knees up, because then you'll feel that softness in the tummy that when felt has a profoundly restorative effect. Roll again in your own time. Coming round in your own way with no feeling of having to rush, you can just stretch out gently. And when you feel ready to come up, you can bring yourself up nice and easy from the side. Thank you so much, as ever.